Alright, 8.2, we're going to use properties of parallelograms. So, a parallelogram is a quadrilateral with both pairs of opposite sides parallel. The term parallelogram, PQRS, can be written as the symbol for a parallelogram, which is like a slanted triangle, PQRS. And parallelogram, PQRS, opposite sides of segment PQ is parallel to segment RS, and QR is parallel to PS segments by definition. The theorems below will describe other properties. So there are multiple properties which we will fill out in class together when we are back together. In a quadrilateral, if a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, then its opposite sides are congruent. So first and foremost, if it is a parallelogram, meaning opposite sides are parallel, or we tell you it's a parallelogram, we also may state that opposite sides are congruent because the distances would need to be equal. So, you could prove something's a parallelogram by proving opposite sides being congruent. I'm talking about parallel slopes. Slopes are easier. Distance formula, not so much. If a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, then its opposite angles are also congruent. So, not only opposite sides congruent, but opposite angles are congruent. So, look at this first diagram. This is a quad. If you want to go in letter order, E, F, G, H. Find F, G, and measure of angle G. First and foremost, looking at the sides. Opposite sides are parallel, which means this is a parallelogram. So, with that, opposite angles are congruent. So if angle E is 60, that means measure of angle G equals 60 degrees. Alright? Once again, it's a parallelogram, so opposite sides are congruent. So, segment FG's measurement is equal to 8 because HE, or EH, is equal to 8. Find the values of X and Y. First and foremost, looking at my pictures. Opposite sides are parallel based on markings. Opposite sides must be congruent. So 18 equals Y plus 3. And we also know that opposite angles are congruent, so 2X equals 50. Minus 3 over 15 equals Y. Divide by 2, X equals 25 degrees. Alright, so parallelogram. Opposite sides are parallel. If a quad is a parallelogram, then its opposite sides are congruent. And if it's also a parallelogram, then the angles that are opposite of each other are congruent. So, the next one we got is, if a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, then the consecutive angles are supplementary. Here's the reason why. If you have parallel lines, this would be a transversal. This transversal means these are consecutive interior angles, which means they have to be 180. If this line that I just drew arrows on, and this line here that I just drew arrows on, are parallel, these become transversals. So these are consecutive interior angles. That's why consecutive angles are always supplementary in a parallelogram. Last but not least, if a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, then the diagonals bisect each other. So, meaning this diagonal and this diagonal get cut in half where they intersect. So, PM would be congruent to MR. QM is congruent to MS. So, based on that, we got one single picture. We're going to find all these unknowns. And what I like to do is mark what I know. So, what I know is parallelogram. Okay? Parallelogram, opposite angles are congruent. So, purple's congruent. I'm going to use some red here. These are congruent. Okay? So, K, J are consecutive. They're one right after another. They are supplementary, which add up to be 180 degrees. So, K plus 110 equals 180 degrees. So, angle K, measure, equals 70 degrees. Okay. Now, with that, what else do we know? Well, looking over here at this diagram, this is a 30, which means if this angle, that is K, which is red, the same as M, if this is 30, and this must add up to be 70, this guy here is 40 degrees. Okay? So, from here, this is 2. This little guy over here is also 2. Because bisect, this is congruent to this. So NM, based on that, is 2. KM is the two numbers added together, which is 4. JML, red angle, 70 degrees. And this little guy of KML, because of this 30, like I said, this angle right here is 40 degrees. Properties of parallelograms are really awesome. And if you know these about opposite sides are the same slope, opposite sides are congruent, opposite angles are congruent, and then consecutive angles are supplementary, that's going to become your best friend. And last but not least, if it is a parallelogram, then the diagonals bisect each other. So homework for this section is going to be, if I recall, I do not know the page number, but it is going to be numbers 2 through 33, no 16. Do not know the page number off the top of my head. If you have questions, please let me know.